Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't want to be labeled. Welcome to Hague Talks here today, and thank you for joining us on such a sunny afternoon. For those of you who still have not yet quite found their seat, there's plenty of seats also here in the front row or the second row. Join us here. Thank you all very much for joining us here to today's Hague Talks about women, peace and security. And a special welcome to those joining us via live stream. Now, I'm just curious, who has been at the Hague Talks before? Okay, nice. Well, those of you who have may know me. I'm Kirsten van den Hul, aka The Change Agent. I'm a columnist and a former UN women's representative. And also, I happen to be a guest lecturer here at Haagse Hogeschool. But at Hague Talks, it's actually not about the people up here. It's also, and maybe mainly, about you. So I would like to ask you to please join the debate online, on Facebook, on Twitter. And we have, that's me, the change agent, in case you want to follow me. We have a social media team. Where are you, social media team? Let's hear it for the social media team up there, yes. And they will actually make sure today that some of the questions that you leave us through Twitter or Facebook or Instagram actually reach me here and of course, our speakers on stage. So keep those questions coming. And for those of you who are not on their 3 or 4G, we have the HHS event network. And the password is welcome with a capital W in English, so capital W ELCOME 2015. Okay, so welcome with a capital W 2015. And in case you want to tweet your questions, you can do that at Hague Talks, and of course the hashtag, unsurprisingly, is also Hague Talks. So keep them coming, I would like to say. Well, today we have a jam-packed program for you with lots of heroes and especially lots of sheroes. And we divided their stories into 4 chapters to keep things clean and clear. The first chapter is called Weapons of War. The second is about women, war, and women and war. The third, is about creativity and progress. And the last chapter will be about peace, women, and the way forward. And in between all of that, we will have a short break to catch our breath. Now, without further ado, I would like to start the first chapter, Weapons of War. And it really is a great pleasure to welcome here our first speaker, whose name is Jody Williams. And she's actually also on Twitter. So in case you want to tweet about her, it's at Jody Williams 97. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in 97 for her work to ban landmines through the international campaign to ban landmines. At that time, she became the 10th woman and the 3rd American woman in its almost 100-year history to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And since her protests against the Vietnam War, she has been a lifelong advocate of freedom, self-determination, and human and civil rights. And more recently, she's launched a campaign against killer robots, which is the topic that she will be talking about today. Let's give her a warm welcome, Miss Jody Williams.
Thank you. Oh, I'm supposed to stand on this, right? I like to move. Hi, everybody, I'm Jody. I'm going to ask the Honorable Change Agent. Do you have a watch on? Yes. You know, when I can see that thing, but it's not doing anything. When it gets to like 2 minutes, will you say something out loud? Okay, because I can spin out and I can talk. It's hard to see you up there, which is agitating. I'm so thrilled to see so many young women. My friends and colleagues, the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, have said that men have messed up this planet from forever, and it is time for the women to take over and clean it up. I certainly, as a woman activist, agree. Not that there aren't decent men out there, but they have done a rather bad job. Before I talk about killer robots, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, because I think people think if you receive the Nobel Peace Prize, suddenly you become Mother Teresa. I am not. Mother Teresa never was, never want to be, never will be. I was born in a town of 1,200 people in a teeny state on the Canadian border of Vermont. We had more cows than people, and it made us very happy. Because cows are pleasant, they give you milk, they give you cheese, they don't attack things, you know. Neither of my parents finished high school. My oldest brother was born deaf, and he became a violent schizophrenic when he was a teenager. I tell you these things because I want you to know that it isn't where you come from. It isn't the title you have. I have this Nobel thing, you know, which actually can be a real pain in the butt. It isn't that matters. The only thing that matters, in my view, is what you do in the world to make it a better place for every single person, even people you do not like, which is a tough one. I could tell you I have a hell of a lot of people I don't like. Oh, I'm a kind of a nasty human. Well, not anymore. I've become gracious with the prize, you know. I have. It's been hard work. But if you're only trying to make the world better for your buddies or the political party you like or whatever, then you're really not changing the world for the better, right? You're trying to change it so the people you like can gain power. To me, what really, really matters in the world is if you can change it in some way that affects everybody for the better. I've done a lot of work on many different things, but right now you heard one of the things that I am proud to be involved in is the campaign to stop killer robots. How many of you in the room know what a drone is? Okay. So we know a drone is a weapon that can fly semi-autonomously for thousands of miles. However, on its own, it doesn't kill you, right? There's a pilot who doesn't leave his chair back in the United States or in other bases who has to look at the target, decide you're a very good target, an appropriate target, and push the buttons to blast you to death with a Hellfire missile or some other weapon. Many of us find that morally repugnant. But that is not what we work on. The Killer Robot campaign is really exactly about killer robots. It is about weapons that are under development now that on their own would be able to target and kill human beings. So imagine the drone. He's all programmed, he's set up, he sets off, and there is no longer a human being looking at the target, and there is no longer a human being who pushes the buttons to kill the person they decide is a target. When I discovered this, after I was getting all agitated about drones, and then I was doing research for a paper and discovered about killer robots, and I was totally freaked out. I grew up with, you know, the nuclear weapons, and my family was relatively poor, and what I wanted was my family to have enough money for a bomb shelter. I didn't care about matching skirts and dresses or the most important new shoes or clothes. I wanted a bomb shelter in case, the evil Soviet Union wanted to blast us with a nuclear weapon. That was how I grew up, in that kind of fear. And then I learned about killer robots, and I was, I think, even more freaked out. Even more freaked out. If you think about what it would mean to have a series of weapons, it wouldn't just be the drone that can on its own, it would be weapons in the air, on the land, in the sea, swarms of weapons that can attack a site. Imagine that. Imagine what that would mean in this world. What I have a hard time imagining is what human beings can sit down at the drawing board and decide that creating weapons that can go out on their own and kill human beings is an okay thing to do. What goes on in the brain of such a person? What goes on in their spirit, if they have any? And what goes on in the heart? And, you know, morality and ethics, I actually think does matter. I think it is offensive to consider weapons that can kill people on their own. You know Isaac Asimov and his 3 rules. The first one was, you know, no robot should ever kill a human or something like that. Well, that is the premise under which we operate in the campaign to stop killer robots. And I'll go back just to the campaign itself. I'm sure many of you have heard many times the Margaret Mead statement, you know, never underestimate what a small group of people can do in changing the world, something like that. What we did in the landmine campaign is an awesome example of that. And you can apply it to anything you care about. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be weapons. It can be fighting climate change. It can be LGBTQA issues. It can be anything. Oh, I only have 2 minutes? Holy shit. Sorry, people. But we were a handful of people that came together and grew to 1,300 organizations around the world, and in 5 years forced governments to give up anti-personnel landmines. It's unheard of. They've been used by every fighting force in the world for 100 years. And some of the same people decided that we were not going to let the militaries and governments and industries that get rich off creating new weapons create a whole new system of warfare that would create a whole new arms race and change our security in the entire world. So a handful of us came together, created the campaign, and within 9 months, we forced governments to come together in the UN and start talking about the need to prohibit them. Just a handful of us. And it blows me away when I think about how possible it is to change the world if you care enough to get up off your butt and work with other people who have the same goal. I will end noting that, you know, going to a bar with your friends and having a glass of wine, which I enjoy doing, by the way, I love good wine, and complaining about the things in the world that bother you is not a strategy for change. Not a strategy for change. Makes you feel good because you know about the issue and you talk about it. Save your energy. It's a waste. If you're not going to take the power that each and every one of us has and use it to attack the issue that you care about in a consistent way with other people who are doing it too, you're wasting your energy. Just have another glass of wine and get happy. Words without action, unless you're a writer, are irrelevant. It's a harsh message, but it's true. If you really want to change the world, get up off your butt. Give 1 hour a week. I keep thinking about, I think I'm over my 2. I keep thinking about if every person in the world of good spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, took an hour a week or an hour a month, if they're so busy they can't even manage an hour a week, and volunteered at an organization working on whatever issue it is you care about, imagine the world. Imagine the world. With just a little bit of effort, what we could do in this world. I started as a volunteer. And then I got the Nobel Peace Prize and made Mom and Dad love me more.
Come right back up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Jody Williams. Isn't she amazing? Let's move.
No, I am a grassroots activist who happens to have that thing that is a pain. But my parents stopped asking me to be a lawyer, thank God.
Yeah, because that was actually my first question to you. What was the plan? What was the original plan for Jody Williams?
Oh, man. Like many college kids, you know, I graduated, I changed my major, my focus 5 times. I wanted to be everything and nothing. I graduated from university with a degree in psychology, couldn't do a damn thing with it. So I ended up working for a dentist. I fainted 7 times the first day, and I am not exaggerating. But then I just kept doing things. You know, I had enough faith in myself that the first thing you do out of college does not define your life. It's one thing you do. I was a temporary secretary after I had a master's degree. My parents totally freaked. It didn't matter. I was looking for the path for myself to contribute to change. And my target was changing the foreign policy of my country, the United States of America, the most militaristic country in the history of the world. I finally made it there.
And now you're here in The Hague.
Oh, I've been to the Netherlands many times on landmines, because you guys are pretty decent. We need you to press your government on killer robots. They need to make a public policy statement that they will not participate in acquiring killer robots. It would be awesome if every one of you tweet them or whatever. Tweet your Minister of Defense, I don't care. Do something to make the world better.
I see actually Danny standing there. Let's hear it for Danny, our social media liaison for today. Join us here, Danny. I'm very curious to see what you have, because this means that there's a question for you through Twitter. It's from a person called Fuzzy Dunlop. I think that's very interesting. Fuzzy Dunlop. And Fuzzy wants to know who would be holding anyone accountable if those autonomous weapons violated international law. I think that's a very interesting question. Thank you, Dunlop, or Fuzzy.
Hey, Fuzzy, that's an excellent question. And seriously, it's one of the major issues of concern for us that are campaigning against the creation of these weapons. Because imagine, you know, somebody builds it, somebody else programs it, and maybe they're not even that great a programmer, by the way, and the thing, you know, then they send it off on its own, and it commits a war crime. You can't bring the robot itself to court. Do you bring the programmer? Do you bring the company that built the structure of the weapon? No one would be held accountable, and that is in direct violation of the laws of war. Also, just to make you even more comfortable about this topic, once they made these things, if they were to make them, they would not just use them in war. They would start using them for crowd control, policing. I think of Tahrir Square, and remember, soldiers, when ordered to shoot, lifted their guns and wouldn't. Think about it. A robot cop programmed to shoot wouldn't care and would shoot you.
Because a robot does not have empathy.
Correct. And by the way, they're already manning, if you will, drones with tear gas. Nice. Crowd control. I don't think you should be protesting this close to the White House. Think about it. Think about a world like that. It may be cool in a movie. There is nothing cool about being attacked by a robot. And it is possible if we do not stop it now.
We have time for one question from the audience. So I'm looking around. This is always a bit of a moment, the first audience question. Is there anybody bold enough to raise their hand?
No.
We have no.
Know what that means? Chicken.
Don't be. Yes, we do. We have a hand up there. So we have a couple of wonderful microphone assistants who will hold the microphone. If you could please stand up and introduce yourself real quickly. Please stand up, and she will hold the microphone for you. Yes.
Hi. That was a very inspirational speech, so thank you. But I was just wondering if there was one thing that you could do in your 1 hour, that if everybody here had 1 hour a week to stop killing robots this week, what would you suggest?
What I did suggest. I don't know that all of you are Dutch. I would suggest sending a letter to the Minister of Defense of your country and say that you are becoming aware of this. You think that government should, at least at a minimum, place a moratorium on research for your own country. individual nation steps are the building blocks that can lead the way to a treaty. For example, Belgium was the first country in the world to unilaterally ban anti-personnel landmines in March of 97. No, 95. And it set off a huge ripple effect of other countries wanting to show that they, were more defenders of human rights than the Belgians, right? Seriously, Belgians? So then other countries started doing the same thing. So if we can get countries to do a moratorium, which means they won't do the research, those steps are very important.
Thank you very much, Jody. I hope, and I actually think I can speak on behalf of everybody else, that your passion is contagious. And I think, and I hope that a lot of tweets and letters will go out after today.
Feel free to Facebook me. I friend everybody because I use it to put out my own propaganda about what you should be thinking and doing.
Jody Williams, thank you very much. Our next speaker has had a long career in the Sri Lankan diplomatic service, during which she worked at the Ministry of External Affairs and was ambassador to Nepal and ambassador to the Netherlands. Mrs. Grace Asirwatham has been Deputy Director General of the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, since 2011. And in 2013, the OPCW won the Nobel Peace Prize. Please welcome her, Ms. Grace Asirwatham. Floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much.
Floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this nice occasion to speak to you, to share my views about women in security and also creating a safer world for all. And it has been 100 years since the world first admitted poison as a weapon of war in our battlefields. As you know, weaponized toxic chemicals are not just another way of killing. They are devastating instruments of exceptional cruelty and destruction. They kill indiscriminately, and also in an unusually painful way, impacting the nervous system, paralyzing the body functions, ability to move, ability to breathe. And those who are not dead by the attack of chemical weapons or toxic chemicals, they will suffer their effects in their entire lives. The impact of chemical weapons on history cast a terrible shadow on our humanity. But it also prompted the international community to come together to take global action in order to rid the world of this scourge. It was an important call, I would say. It was a call the international community has taken very seriously. Over the last 100 years, we have been able to create, or we have been creating the architecture, perhaps I would say, one of the most successful and enduring examples of international cooperation in disarmament. As you all know, the Chemical Weapons Convention outlawed an entire class of weapons of mass destruction in 1997. Today, after 18 years of implementation of the convention, I'm very happy to say that we are at the threshold of achieving the global zero on chemical weapons. The complete elimination of chemical weapons is not a distant dream. It is a goal which will be realized in 2023, just in 8 years. And we have done this even in extremely challenging security situations. It's not an easy journey for us, especially in Syria. Maintaining this global prohibition against chemical weapons has taken the dedicated efforts of the entire OPCW community, the 190 states parties, and the staff of the Technical Secretariat who are responsible for creating solutions for many challenging situations. But it also takes, as I have seen from my experience with the OPCW, a wide-reaching global impact involving all stakeholders. Chemical weapons disarmament is I would say, a very nice experience. And also, it is a wonderful example of how your own contribution can be critical to keeping the world safe from chemical weapons. Because even when we have eliminated all the world's declared stockpiles of chemical weapons, our work will not have been completed. We cannot say that we have accomplished the mission as long as the possibility of their re-emergence exists. We need to continue to monitor that chemistry is used only for peaceful purposes, for which we need the entire international community's support, entire stakeholders' support, everyone's support. The norm at the Chemical Weapons Convention must be strong, and also it is strong, that the use of toxic chemicals as weapons is illegal and it is unethical, whether in times of peace or war. It is your generation that will have to nurture this norm for long term. Let me tell you about the story of a famous scientist, Fritz Haber. You may have known about him, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1918. The same Nobel laureate came to be known by another less fortunate name, the father of chemical warfare, for his role as the leader of Germany's chemical warfare program during World War I. Perhaps the most interesting thing about his story in connection to my talking to you today is the story of his wife. She was also a chemist with a PhD, and she did not have the opportunity to follow her own career in chemistry or science. She was just a homemaker. She just assisted the Nobel laureate in his translation work, etc. And her response to her husband's work in chemical weapons program was one of disgust. The idea came to be so disturbing to her that after a heated discussion with her husband, before he went to supervise a chemical weapons attack, she committed suicide by shooting herself with her husband's military gun. One can only wonder if things would have been different if she had pursued her own career of science in the service of peace. She sacrificed her life, as I see, for the cause of responsible science. This makes me to ask, so what is about women specifically in the process of peace and security? What role can women play? Women are scientists, engineers, teachers, policymakers, homemakers. They are also in more challenging field of politics, international politics, local politics. They are diplomats. The short answer is all of these roles. And in each of these roles, they are critical to building peace. While I speak about women in the process of peace and security, I would like to share with you some brief information about myself. I grew up in Sri Lanka, which is an empowering place to be a woman. I was privileged to have had a nurturing environment, a supportive family, and a chance to utilize my potential. My gender identity was not a factor that in any way inhibited either my dreams of my journey in life or career. Women often confront challenges when it comes to breaking the glass ceiling, certainly. But what I have learned from being a woman in the field of security is that when you have made it through the glass ceiling, when it comes to actually doing the hard work of security through diplomacy or otherwise, being a woman does not matter at all. And my work in this field has shattered a lot of stereotypes that I would also like to break for you today. When you first think about the business of security, you may well imagine a room full of men in gray suits or uniforms. Of course, this is an old-fashioned thinking. I was recently going through some old pictures of the earliest attempts of disarmament, pictures, for instance, of negotiations around the Hague Conference of 1899, the Geneva Conference Protocol of 1925, and some other pictures. And indeed, you will not be surprised, there were few to no women in those pictures. Today, this has changed, at least at the international level. At national level, it is being changed. So it's a good news. We are accommodated, we are recognized, we should strive hard to get more. In the field of security, especially in chemical weapons disarmament, over the course of my association with the OPCW, during the last 7 years, in different capacities, I have worked with women ambassadors, women chairpersons of the policymaking organs, women advisors, women delegates, women technical experts, and also women inspectors, chemical inspectors, each of whom have made important contributions. And in the context of women peace builders who have associated with the OPCW during my period with the OPCW, I can remember the UN High Representative of Disarmament Affairs, the Special Coordinator for the OPCW UN Joint Mission on Elimination of Chemical Weapons in Syria, were also both women. Therefore, women are critical to peace, not because of any particular personality traits or inborn skills, but because it is a reservoir of potential and talent that will otherwise be wasted. Quite simply put, failing to empower women means to use half of our human resources. Even as I stand here talking to you about the vital role of women in security and peace processes, in my current capacity as the Deputy Director General of the OPCW, I cannot help but think back to a time when I had taken the first step, much like all of you today. I was just only 24, fresh out of university in Sri Lanka and confronted with a world of possibility and opportunities. So why did that young girl decide to join the diplomatic service? Was it a sense of purpose? I have to be honest with you, no, it was not. It was probably because it was an exciting opportunity to gain international experience. And of course, there must have been, I should confess, must have been a secret, small dream with this small girl about changing the world, even if only a little. But that one decision had overnight drawn me into a world where my work played a role in the lives of others. And my career continues to make me work, not for myself, but to contribute to the global efforts, national efforts, so that women and men everywhere can live free of the fear of war, free of inhuman weapons, and free of suffering. If there is one thing I have learned, one key message that I can share with you today, and one key lesson to explain the role of women in the process of peace, it is this. We are all women and men across the global as one global community, responsible for the world we live in. International security will take more than just the absence of wars, absence of weapons, ends of different conflicts. Peace, in my opinion, is an active quality of life that must be won through hard work and devotion and dedication. And it cannot be built by just one organization, one institution, not by one individual or one country. It must be built by all of us together, in our classrooms, in our societies, in our countries, and in our daily lives. If we are going to embark on something as bold as attempting to change the world, we can only change it together. This is why each one of us, women and men, are already peace builders of tomorrow. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Grace. Now, I already said I also, let's move a little bit here. I also teach here as a guest lecturer, and we talk a lot about the position of women in the labor market. And I heard you say there is no difference between men and women. But if there is one piece of advice, and some of my students are here, I saw them, thank you guys for coming. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to these young men and women here about the topic of gender in the labor force, what would that be? A piece of advice that you wish somebody had given to you when you were just starting your career?
I can tell you in one line, believe in yourself, believe in your capabilities and capacities and skills.
Confidence. Okay. We have time for one question from the audience. Very brief question. I'm also looking to the people who joined us. It's very hard to see you because of the lights, but there's one here, right in the front. If you could run down with your microphone, and if you could stand up and introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Blass. Do you think that the focus of the international community on the use of chemical weapons in Syria has in some way led to a complacency and distracted attention away from other so-called conventional ways of murdering, maiming, and mutilating people?
Well, as far as the chemical weapons use in Syria, we have done our part. The Technical Secretariat, we have conducted fact-finding mission, and our report said that with high degree of confidence, chemical weapons have been used in Syria. And before Syria became the state party, we worked in Syria, that was in 2013, August, together with the UN team, and the report is also with the Security Council. And punitive action will be taken by the Security Council. So from my side, from the OPCW, I can conclude that we have done our part, and we have concluded with high degree of confidence. I can say that it has been proved that chemicals, chlorine, especially chlorine, has been used against innocent civilians.
Are there days in your daily life when you're confronted with so much of the bad in people? Are there days where you think, oh, I'm losing hope? And if so, how do you motivate yourself to keep going and to remain
every day is a new day for me, and I look forward to do more, so I have never been depressed or discouraged in any way by my work or the people around me.
Well, that's a blessing. Thank you very much for being here today. Another warm applause for Grace Asirwatham. Now it's time for chapter 2, and chapter 2 is about women and war. And our next guest unfortunately knows all too much about what that means. Our next guest is called Nawal Yazeji, and she's the co-president of the Syrian Women's League and a coordinator for the follow-up committee of the Syrian Women Initiative for Peace and Democracy. She's also coordinator and one of the founders of the Coalition of Syrian Women for Democracy and co-founder of the Syrian League for Citizenship. For the last 30 years, Nawal has worked at the international, national and regional levels in the fields of women's human rights, gender equality and discrimination, women's political participation and democracy building. And after 3 years of bloody conflict in her country, Nawal and her colleagues are fighting for a political solution of the conflicts in Syria, including full participation of women in the whole peace-building process. Now, let's warm her. One of the sheroes of today, Nawal. Please join me here. We're so happy that you made it. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a seat. So, you have been an activist for over 44 years. Now, what has kept you going? What inspires you?
When you have invited me to participate in this talk, I was asking myself, what am I going to tell the people here? There is a lot of things we are going through, and 10 minutes will never be enough to tell the whole story. But a 23 years old driver led me to choose the title of what I'm going to tell you. He said, we were talking, he said, we Syrians, in spite of all darkness around, we are still resisting for our lives. Then I thought, yes, if there is no hope at all, we should create it. But you cannot create hope or anything out of nothing. You can always base on something in your hand. And my hope is based on my experience, on what I hear, on what I see, on the conversation with my people, on these things, or on watching what is going on in my country. My hope is based on my people's behavior now. You could see thousands of young people like you never have been involved in public issues or civil society or anything. Now you can see them in all areas, outside, inside Syria, at the refugee areas, everywhere, organizing themselves to have a role in the future of their country. Women in very conservative areas never go from their house to their mother's house without a male from the family go with them. They never move alone from place to another. Now, they took their families, they moved with their families to a better place, to a safe place, inside Syria, outside Syria, to the refugee areas, and to what we call it internal displaced places. They move. One of my colleagues, I was a teacher I know her before. She is my age. She moved with her family 7 times from place to another, looking for, and her retirement is about $65. But she could manage to, to support her family and find a way to put them in a safe place. A woman from Ghouta, you know Ghouta around Damascus, where the conflict is so difficult and hard. She never heard about shelters for women or anything like that. But once she opened her house as a shelter for women who were violenced in different way from any side. Never been trained. Her heart led her to do what necessary for her people. Women never been involved in women issues or equality, or they never heard about gender, or they heard about gender equality, but they don't understand exactly what it is. You can see them now, young women, and they didn't believe even in women movement before. And that was big argue with them that we should do something because the conflict is getting harder and harder, and the extremists are threatening our future and our rights and so on. And they say, look, now it's not the time to talk about human rights. Now you can see them organizing themselves, talking about women's rights and women full participation in the peace process. They organized themselves in a group, in an initiative, they call it Syrian Women for Peace and Democracy. And this show us what they are aiming from this title. Peace and democracy, because they know no women's rights without democracy, and at the same time, no democracy without women participation, full participation.
And sorry to interrupt you, Nawal, but I'm very curious to hear about the role of men as well, because you described to us that there are these very courageous women who are now really embracing new opportunities as well and letting their voice be heard. But what about men? Are they open to these women? Are they listening?
Well, you remember Judy, what she said, that men destroyed the world, let women clean it. I don't agree exactly with this. I think we need both hands to build, no matter who destroyed, but we need 2 hands to build. And I know when I talk about young people, men and women, organizing themselves now as a civil society. They've never been organized. Now they are organizing themselves to have a role in the future. I meant young women and men like you. So this is the rule of it doesn't matter if you are male or female. It's not the story. It's not nothing. It's your thinking, how you feel about peace or about war. I think. So I don't want to be that much extremist talking about only women, but you know, this is very, very, very important indicator. I mean, if you see a man leading a family, it's tradition thing. But now, UNHCR have a report on June 2014. They say 1,400 family in the refugee community in Egypt or Jordan and are led by women. 144,000. They didn't count inside, the displaced areas inside. So can you imagine how many families now are led by women who never work, who never go to work? This is why I'm talking about women, because this indicates us that the Syrian communities, the Syrian society, my country will never go back to the traditional role of women or men in our life. So this is how I think that we can create hope. I will take this chance, a moment, to call all Syrians to stand up, hand in hand, and stop this dirty war. Build your country, a place, a safe place for all of us, men and women, for all components. You can do it, and I call soldiers and fighters, politicians, civil society, activists, men and women, you can do it. Stand and do it. Don't wait for anyone to help you building your peace, building your country. We can do it. I trust that very deep in my heart, and I hope you share with me this hope and this trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Nawal. Let's have a look. I'm sure there are questions. I'm also trying to look to the people upstairs. We have microphone assistants in the audience. Who would like to ask a question today? Yes, we have a lady in a minute. If you could go to our microphone assistant there so she can reach you. Yeah. If you could please introduce yourself.
Hi,
She will hold the microphone for you.
Sorry. Hi, thanks for your inspirational talk. I just wondering, because you said probably not everybody's clear about gender equality, and what is gender equality to you? What is the rights for equal rights for women and men? Thank you.
I think I came here to learn from you what is gender equality and equality between men and women means. But still, if you mean, what does it mean in Syria? For a long time, we were working for gender equality and women human rights. And we could gain very small thing. But still, yet, these small things we have are threatened by the extremists who hide behind religion to control our life in a way we will never accept. So, from this hand, full participation of women in the peace process from A to Z maybe will guarantee not to go back thousands of years ago. Maybe we can save some of our rights and go forward to gain another. We won't accept Syria as a fundamental country. We will never accept to give up fighting for full women human rights. Never.
Thank you, shukran. We have a question through Twitter from our one and only Danny. Thank you very much, Danny. The question is from somebody called JJ, and the question is, how would you encourage Syrian allies to advocate for justice in Syria?
I think this is this is good question, especially we are in international law university. I think justice can be built only when peace is there. You cannot build justice during the war. So, first of all, let's stop this war. Let's build our peace in country, a safe place for everyone with equal rights between all components. Then we can think and act to get justice too. First, let's build the peace.
No justice without peace and no peace without women. On that note, I would like to ask for another round of applause. Shiro, Nawal, shukran.
Thank you.
Shukran. وإلى اللقاء إن شاء الله. Thank you so much for being here.
Ah, what a
today.
surprise. She speaks Arabic.
Yes, I do.
And I was speaking English.
Sorry, أنا آسفة. Now on to actually watch a movie, and we will actually meet the man who made the movie a little bit later on. Reber Dosky is his name, a Kurdish-Dutch filmmaker who studied at the Amsterdam Film and TV Academy. And his latest project focuses on girl power in the Middle East and the role of women in the battle for the city of Kobani. But what happens after the war against IS is over? Do these women and girls go back home to become housewives? Or do they continue fighting, but this time against gender stereotypes? Let's have a look.
Why lemon, 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 lemon daim. ولا زيرو دنا بادلي خدنا لبد بهم هي واخل من هي واخل من هي واخل من. دوا زيرو بر خدنا كوباني بكمل بس تاسر زمانه بقرنم نواحم وعالم وإنسانم. أغلمني ويلمني 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 لمني لضايم ولا زي شافي خد قرينم در دورا كوباني قرت يمشي بدومانه شر جنگ جنگو قرانم دايرو دنگي تانگو توپانه بنا بارت راد بعرشي لازمانم أغلمني ويلمني 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 ولد ساكت خورتي كردانه بسنگا خبونه مرتاله بني تانگو توپانه آخ ويلمني 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 لمني لدايم ولدايم ازيدنا خود دمه کلاني كوباني هسري چاوي دايكانم دیرو قرنی کت که نواز روزه چوکالو پیرانه وایل منیم هسری چاوی زارو کامکی چمی فراد کلانه کبانه دهرکم آخل منی وایل منی وایل منی وایل منی وایل منی لمنی لدایم ولدای زیرو رابم بچلو چار زمانی بخوینه بده پس نیبر خدا ناصر زوریم دتی دا فرمان دار پیمانه بیاز در هوالا مورا خودی رو کارش دانیانم آخ لمنه لیل منه وای لمنه لو لمنه وای لمنه لدایم ولدای رو دسا در دورا کبانی فرمانان امروتانم دیرو داره ظلم خودشینه حچال ملی کبانی دور پیش دکینم آخ وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لدایم دوازه رابم دناوا دل خوب نالم از رابم تبورا خوب هشینم دسر من آگره مشته نور بفرکینم آخ لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لدایم دیرو دنگ روشنا راد به روشلاتی کردستانی خبرد ناوا دل کوبانی ددی ساگوره نوشیان تدا سر گوونده دهجینه در دورا کوبانی بخملا خود نقشینم آخ لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لدایم ولایرو آرینه جوانه پک روانا دوزید به پرچکی بو بازیلانیم خبرد دن آوا دل داگر کری حچال ملیک و بانیم آخ لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لدایم ولایرو خمنو خیالی گل هاتا خود پیچه بجنو بالا باهوزام دقیرینه دبه افدر نگریه زیلانه نمیدانا چارچرای انرژی حلب چهیم دوه کوبانا رنگینه بویه سنبولا حمی بر خدانا لجیهانی ولا زیرا بدینا خود دمه کوبانا رنگینه خبر وی آزادی و دهجینه ولا ایرو درجینه چاوینه یارو دجمنانم آخ لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لدایم ولا دایم وزید قیرم دنالینم دبه وفچ دمه چه دورانه چه چاخه چه زمانم ما نشرم لجیهانی کردارا جینمایم آخ لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لدایم دوزید ایسانا وادل خود نالب دمشم آخ لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه وای لمنه لمنه لدایم
Yeah, and he is here with us today. Please welcome Reber Dosky. And please join me. Kom erbij. And since Reber does not speak English that well, we agree that I will translate for him. Hartelijk welkom, hartelijk welkom. Wilde je eigenlijk altijd al filmmaker worden? Did you always want to become a filmmaker?
Nee.
No.
Het is in 2007 begonnen eigenlijk die avontuur.
That adventure started in 2007.
Na opleiding hier op Haagse Hogeschool. Ik dacht,
So after studying here at Haagse Hogeschool,
ben ik naar filmacademie gegaan.
he went to the movie academy. Maar wat heb je hier gestudeerd? What did you study here?
Maatschappelijk werk en dienstverlening.
Aha, social work.
Ja.
Dat is best een overstap.
Nou, het is
That's
op
quite a
zich,
change.
het is heel dicht bij elkaar.
Aha.
Alles wat
Oh, it's
eigenlijk in
actually-
maatschappij, als we in grote context gaan bekijken in een wereld,
If you look at it from a bigger context, it's
probeer ik
actually
weer
not
nog
that wide
steeds
apart.
een brug te bouwen tussen verschillende werelden. Nou, het is ook een tak van een maatschappelijk werken, denk ik.
So I try to build bridges between different parts of the world, just like a social worker would. Nou, over dit project waar we net een stukje van hebben gezien. Waarom heb je dit thema gekozen? Why did you choose this topic?
Ja, weet je, ik kom zelf uit het Midden-Oosten en wij zien het wel dat het een mannelijke cultuur is. Een masculine cultuur, en waarvan vrouw...
Time out. So I'm from the Middle East myself, and we see that it's quite a masculine culture.
Ja. Een vrouw niet heel veel ruimte krijgen, en vooral traditioneel is, tussen vier muren, kinderen, huishoudelijke dingen. En mannen bepalen eigenlijk alles.
So we see that there's not a lot of space for women. Women stay at home between the four walls of the house, look after the children, and men get to decide everything.
Dus ik dacht, ja, ik ben een man. Ik wil met mijn eigenlijk andere blik van even kijken hoe kunnen wij de situatie anders belichten. In augustus 2014, IS is begonnen met aanval in Noord-Irak.
So I, as a man, wanted to see what I could do to shed a different light on the role of women there. And in August 2014, IS started bombing or attacking northern Iraq.
En zijn tot nu toe 3000 Koerdische vrouwen zijn ontvoerd en niemand weet waar die zijn.
And until now, 3,000 Kurdish women have been kidnapped without anybody knowing where they are.
Ze zijn als slaven verkocht op slavenmarkt.
They've been traded as slaves in slave markets.
In september 2014 is IS begonnen met hun aanval op Kobani, stad wat jullie net gezien hebben in een video.
In September 2014, IS started attacking Kobani, the city that you've just seen.
En vrouwen, nou ja, we hebben net vluchtelingen ook gezien, die gingen vluchten vanuit Kobani naar Turkije. Maar een bepaalde groep vrouwen hebben ze gezegd, hier en niet verder. Hebben zij wapens gepakt? Hebben ze gezegd, wij gaan niet vluchten, maar wij gaan ons verdedigen. Wij gaan ons stad verdedigen.
So we saw a stream of refugees leaving the city, but there was actually a group of women who decided to stay. And they said, no, until here and no further. We are going to stay and we're going to pick up the arms and we're going to actually defend our city of Kobani.
En deze vrouwen hebben zeker ook een droom zoals u en mij. Maar ze hebben tijdelijk hun droom op zijkant gezet. En ze willen graag tegen die mannelijke macho-cultuur gaan vechten. Maar het is goed, wat ook hoofdvraag van mijn film is, wat wordt het hun positie in het democratische systeem straks, wat wordt het hun positie eigenlijk? Gaan ze straks een stapje terug maken of gaan ze juist verder vechten tegen alle andere mannen die hetzelfde denken, eigenlijk niet heel veel anders denken dan IS.
So one of the main questions of the project is, what will happen afterwards in a democratic society? Will they go back to their stereotypical roles as housewives, or will they actually stand up against the men in their environments who may not differ in opinion that much from the IS points of view?
Eén ding voor mij is duidelijk geworden. Ik ben nu 3 keer geweest. Zij willen geen stap terug maken.
So one thing became clear in the 3 times that Reber was there. They are not really ready to take a step back after this. Hoe was het voor jou om daar te filmen? What was it like for you to film there?
Het is niet makkelijk geweest. Ik ben in december geweest. En toen was 80% van de stad Kobani in de handen van IS.
So I was there in December when 80% of the city was controlled by IS.
Ja, op een gegeven moment moet je gaan switchen. Er waren rond 2000 mensen, burgers nog in de stad, maar ook 4000 rebellen, Koerdische rebellen, die aan het vechten waren.
So at one point there were 2000 people left in the city, civilians, but also 4000 Kurdish rebels.
Waarvan 3000 dames zijn.
Of whom 3000 women.
En ik dacht, ja, ik ben niet beter dan hun, dus switchen, gewoon met hun meegaan.
So he thought, I'm not better than them, so I just went with them. Dus je was aan de frontlinie.
Ja,
so you were at the front line.
Ja.
Is it dat waard voor jou om dit verhaal te vertellen? Is it worth it for you in order to share this story?
Nee, ja, we hebben net over maatschappelijk werken gehad. Hè. Ik denk, uiteindelijk met mijn film wil ik ook... kijk, dit is misschien een onbekende wereld voor jullie, maar jullie hebben nu even een kijkje genomen in de keuken van Kobani. Ja, dit is ongelooflijk wat allemaal daar gebeurt. Maar heb je wel een bepaalde idee? Heb je een foto gezien of heb je een beeldmateriaal gezien? Dan straks zie je op televisie of lees je een krant, dan begrijp je de situatie veel beter. Dat is ook mijn doel eigenlijk, jou meenemen naar nieuwe werelden voor jou.
So we just talked about social work. Well, that is actually why I'm doing this, to take you, you've seen the images now, to actually take you to this other world that might be far from you, but now it's closer. Ik zie dat we een Twitter-vraag hebben. I see that we have a question from Danny, so let's have a look. Thank you, Danny. And first in English, Iris is asking, I'm missing the point. Are you showing this film to illustrate that women are equally good fighters as men? Ik snap het niet. Wat is je punt? Laat je deze film zien om te bewijzen dat vrouwen even goed kunnen vechten als mannen?
Dat is nooit mijn bedoeling geweest.
That was never my intention.
Voor duidelijkheid, ik maak een lange documentaire.
To be clear, I make a longer documentary.
Het is 1,5 uur.
It's 1.5 hours.
En ik ben al lang nog niet klaar mee. Maar
And
deze...
it's not finished by long.
En deze is Vian Pijman, is een zangeres, maar die is... Dus ik heb net over dromen gehaald. Ze heeft haar dromen neergezet. Ze kan gewoon gaan zingen en een concert geven, maar ze heeft gezegd, nee, ik ga voor mijn volk vechten, ik ga voor mijn eer vechten.
So the woman we just saw is a woman who's a singer and who could have a life as a singer, but she decided to put her dream on hold and to pick up arms to defend her city.
Tijdens mijn opname in Kobani heb ik kennis gemaakt met haar en heeft ze gezegd, nou, ik heb zelf ook gevraagd, joh, zullen wij samen een clip maken? Dat is eigenlijk een clip wat ik voor haar gemaakt heb.
And when they met, when Reber was filming there, she said, well, why don't we make a video together, a music video? And that is the result that you just saw.
Een bepaalde beelden van mijn eigen film heb ik nu ingebruikt.
And mixed with a couple of images from my own movie. Laatste vraag. Als we de
Dus
film...
ik wil absoluut niet laten zien, vrouwen kunnen absoluut vechten. Ik bedoel...
I don't want to see, I don't want to show that women can fight. Yes, of course they can.
Ik bedoel, mannen hebben die wapens gemaakt, maar uiteindelijk vrouwen kunnen ook gebruiken. Dat kan iedereen vechten.
Men may have made those arms, but women can use them. Anybody can fight. That's not the point.
Maar wat interessant is, in zo'n mannelijke cultuur, dat vrouwen zeggen even opzij. Ik maak mijn eigen ruimte en ik bepaal zelf wat ik wil.
Yeah. But what I find interesting that in a masculine society, women say, step aside, I'm creating my own space and I decide that I can defend myself. Laatste vraag. Als we jouw hele film willen zien, wanneer kunnen we die verwachten? If we want to see the whole movie, when can we expect it?
Ik hoop ergens 2015 maart af te hebben.
Oké, maart 2016.
Ja, 2016, sorry.
March 2016, hope to be finished. Let's hear it once more for Reber and be safe. Thank you very much. Yeah, and now after 2 chapters of fascinating stories, I think we all deserve a short break. So I would like to suggest that we see each other back here in 15 minutes. So that would be at 35 past 4. And when we need you back here, you will hear this sound. I think that's rather clear. So enjoy your break and see you back here in 15 minutes. Welcome back. Welcome back. And hi, Mom. I just saw a message from my mom that she's with us on live stream, so just saying hi. And welcome back. We have another amazing couple of speakers lined up for you. But before we go into the next chapter, it is a pleasure to introduce a good friend. He actually moved to the Netherlands in 1994. And after 10 years, he finally completed the Dutch assimilation course equivalent, received a Dutch passport, and became the one and only American Netherlander. He wrote a book called How to Be Orange, and I already saw a bunch of exchange students here in the room. I can highly recommend it. It's a great crash course on how to be orange, especially now, like a couple of days before King's Day, so, you know, want to get that book. He also has his own TV show on Salto TV, and, well, what else can I say? He's just incredibly funny. Please, let's hear it for Greg Shapiro.
Excellent. Are we there? Good, good. Okay, folks, hi to Kirsten's mom. Very happy you're watching on the live stream. How are you guys doing? That was terrible. But that's fine. That's what we expected for the speaker after the lunch break for a lot of you. It's like, we have to start again. Yes, we do. Let's try again, maybe with a more American style. Ja, ik ben half Nederlander, but let's be a bit more American. How you guys doing? Excellent, very good. Okay, in fact, how many men do we have here today? Men? Look at that reaction. Isn't that great? The men are like, is it okay that we are here? Yes, it's totally okay. I myself am the first, I guess, male solo speaker here today. Some people were teasing me already. Oh, so you have to crash the women's conference. Well done. No. I was asked by women to be here, and I obeyed. That's why I'm here. But how many women here today? Yes, there we go. You're allowed to make some noise there. Excellent. Well, good. And it's nice to see that there is a mix. There's not just one gender completely. I think there's just a research been proving that everybody's on their best behavior. Offices are more efficient when there's a mix of genders. All women, maybe not so good. All men, definitely not so good. But a mix is good. How many Dutch people here today? Dutch people? Okay. Again, a little bit of woo, mostly just raising hands and waiting to be counted. Interesting. Any not Dutch people? Not Dutch people? Yeah. Again, not Dutch people, more proud of not being Dutch than Dutch people are proud of being Dutch. I love that. That's just interesting. Well, today I was asked to talk about what feminism means to me and women talks. What does that mean to me as an American Netherlander? And some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about right now might be somewhat offensive to some people, but I'm only sharing my own personal experience. And for example, well, here's the thing. Can a man be a feminist? I've had difference of opinion on this, and I can see both sides, but I'll just ask this crowd right here. Hands up, how many people think men can be feminists? Okay, interesting. And how many people disagree? They're like, please, we finally have one term just for ourselves. Can we have this to ourselves now? I'm just interesting. Good for you. And I know some people are more like voting like Americans do. We love democracy, but I was too bored when it was time to vote. Or, I don't know, too busy. But fair enough. Well, to answer that question, I thought I would talk about, my own experience, I suppose, with raising 2 kids here in the Netherlands. And I'm married now to a Dutch woman. Came for work, stayed for love. If you're not from the Netherlands, fair warning, it can happen to you too. Very nice country to live and bring up kids, as it turns out. Anyway, I'm married now to a wonderful woman, and she has sort of led me in studying and understanding what feminism means here in the Netherlands. And I like it. I'm sort of following the lead, and now we have 2 kids, and my daughter is 14, my son is 11, and my daughter has just reached that point when she's become a woman. And this is when it gets really interesting for me, because we raised her, I let the mom set the lead, basically, and when my daughter was like 4 years old, and she said, "Where do babies come from?" And she looked at me, I looked at the mom, like, well, it's your country, and it's, kind of, just let you take the lead on this one, dear, yoink. And my American prudishness kind of kicked in. But my wife was pretty soon having us talk about just the basics of human biology as I understood it. That is maybe a bit more Dutch tradition of talking about human sexuality as a normal part of the human experience. certainly more than my family does back in America. Pretty soon we were giving little books to our kids. My daughter had a book called Sammy the Super Sperm, and it was all about Sammy was a great swimmer. He was a sperm out of millions of sperm, and his job was to transmit his genetic information to the egg, and here's how that happens. And it's very graphic, you know. And we were taking this book back to my family back in the United States, and oh, it's time to take the kids to bed. What would you like to read? Sammy the Super Sperm. And do you know how you laugh at little kids when they hear information that they're not ready for and they just don't want to, you know, like you have to eat your vegetables. And sometimes they'll just go, la, 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 I can't hear you. That's what my parents did when they got their hands on Sammy the Super Sperm, you know. La, 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 we're not talking about that in front of the children. And yeah, it's just a different way, isn't it? But right now, we have, you know, my daughter. And my daughter is now 14. And now that it's time to have the talk about sexuality, now that my daughter is a woman, she's back to la, 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 no, I don't want to talk about it, and certainly not with my father, thank you very much, la, la, la. And okay, fine. That's why we have the younger brother. Now, the younger brother is 11 years old, and he knows that his older sister is particularly sensitive about this topic, so he will come home and he will talk about, oh yes, I know all about sexuality. And my friends on the school playground have been telling me about how it works. They have many videos you can study, and I'm thinking, oh God, where are we going with this? But then again, sometimes I do have to get involved. Because my son, I will see him on the playground, and I will see his classmates. This is in a like vrije school, fairly liberal Dutch school in Amsterdam. And I will see some of the kids calling the other kids homo. And if I hear my kids saying that, I'll smack him. I can't help it. I just, yeah, that shouldn't happen. And sometimes I just have to correct them. I heard someone in my son's class call another kid in the class pussy. And yeah, and then I also hear like, oh yeah, have you got any balls? Or are you being a pussy? And I told my son, that is just factually inaccurate, okay? Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to quote another comedian, Stephanie Tucci, who's wonderful. And she was basically saying that, you know, if we're using that term, like a vagina is made of muscle, basically. I mean, you can do vaginal gymnastics. Can you do that with testicles? No, you can't. In fact, if you have any balls or not, testicles are, by definition, if there's any threat, they retreat up into the abdomen. If you hit them, they will result in doubling over and no action and total surrender. No, I think that's just factually wrong. And then, of course, came these infographics that were coming up on like Facebook, Jezebel.com. Friends of mine are now sending me things from the US. There was an infographic that said the annual cost of owning a vagina. And yeah, my daughter and I have to talk about that. And it's $2,500 US a year. And she said, now, if it's an academic kind of way of studying this feminism and gender, and then we can start talking about it. We also talked about how there's the glass ceiling, or there's the gender inequality in pay, wage inequality in the US. President Obama just said it in the State of the Union address. Women earn 77 cents for every dollar that American men earn. But the interesting thing was not just the wage inequality, it was the categories of the costs of owning a vagina. $2,500 US a year, if you're earning a salary. Think of how nice it would be to have a bonus of an extra $2,500 US, because you did a good job. And now imagine that you're not getting paid the same as men are already getting paid, and you have to subtract $2,500 for owning a vagina. But it was my daughter who noticed the first big cost in America was birth control, and the second cost was shaving and shaving accessories. And it was my daughter who pointed out, that's optional, actually, isn't it? And that led us to the third eye-opener, which was the woman tax. I don't know if you know womantax.org. They just take women's and men's products and put them right next to each other. Men's products, like men's shavers. A packet of 10 disposable razors is €2. Pink disposable razors, pack of 10, $2.50. Because, you know, pink is a much more expensive plastic to make, apparently. And it goes for pain relievers as well, $5 for men, $5.50 for women. Toys, Mega Blocks are $21 for a boy's box, and for girls, $25.50. And it's just across the board. And it's another $1,400 per year that women end up spending on these items. And that's when my daughter and I decided to do a project together. This was father-daughter bonding, and this is how we started dealing with feminism. And we went through the health and beauty store, and we studied some of the biological necessities that you are going to have to pay for. That's unavoidable. But then the question, maybe it's not what they're selling, it's what we're buying. And the optional items. I mean, first, biological, fine. From panty liners, panty shields, panties, no, but edible panties, yes, in case you get hungry. Those are in there. Birth control, of course, feminine hygiene, feminine super hygiene, feminine vitamin supplements, iron supplements. I am Iron Woman. Pregnancy tests, yes. Wet wipes to clean up after pregnancy test. Valium tablets for after the results of the pregnancy test. Pregnancy needs, motherhood needs, breastfeeding pump, breastfeeding cup, breastfeeding shields. Can't I just use a maxi pad in my bra? No! Maak je borst nat, as they say in Dutch. But then, the optional items, shaving. Men get shaving cream, razor. Women get special pink razors with special delicate grip and special gel, razor, shave, whatever. Depilatory cream as well. Bleaching cream, bikini wax. Special pain reliever for after bikini wax. Face, men get aftershave. Women get face cream, face scrub, face rub, intensive vitamin E Swiss treatment with bleaching, with bronzing, with orange color to make you look like women from Nord-Holland or something. It's all laboratory tested, all natural, anti-aging, Dead Sea serum, and that's worth another €100. Nails. Women get nail clippers. Men get nail clippers. Women get nail file, nail sculptor, nail clippers, nail polish corrector, nail polish remover, nail remover, North Korea only. Makeup. Men get nothing. Women get makeup for your face, makeup remover for your face, base for your face, cooling cucumber pads, powder, rouge for when you put on too much powder, lip balm, flavored lip balm, lipstick, but no flavored lipstick, even though you end up eating most of it anyway, eyeliner, eyeshadow, eyelash livener, because everything else is eyelash deadener, and it's because you're worth it, or according to the marketing, because without it, you're worthless. Hair. Men get shampoo, maybe. Women get hair care for long hair care for short hair, for blonde hair, for dark hair, and then the conditioner. Special conditioner with lemon juice for your blonde hair, with olive oil for your smooth hair. And because it's the Netherlands, I've actually seen conditioner with mayonnaise for your smooth hair. And then, of course, you need the special shampoo to remove all the food you just put in your hair. So as long as my daughter wants to buy this stuff and it's coming out of my wallet, then yes, I'm a feminist.
Woohoo! High five on that, Greg. Greg Shapiro. If you want to read more about what this amazing guy does, follow him on Twitter @GregoryShapiro or Google him. It's worth it, I can tell you that much. Now, on to our next chapter, creativity and progress. Our next speaker is Harrison Okwach Ute. He studied performing arts at Kenya Performing Arts Academy. And then he went ahead as an exchange student at University College Utrecht, where he studied drama. Harrison now works for an amazing NGO called YEDEN, Youth Arts Development and Entrepreneurship Network, which is active all over East Africa, in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, and Rwanda, working on topics like violence against women with young women who were actually involved in war, who worked as prostitutes, who were teen moms, rape victims, and students. Let's hear it for Harrison.
Oh after I finished my high school, my step-parents wanted me to become a doctor. But I went to a different direction. I decided to become a performing artist. You see, in Africa, and it's good that I see some of my friends here. Aurelia, hi. She's a Kenyan, I don't know what she's doing here. Maybe she's one of the, but it's okay. So, so, you know, in Africa, most African countries, especially in Kenya, if your father is a doctor, then the society expects you to become a doctor automatically to fill in your father's foot after he's dead. If your father is a politician, definitely you become a politician. But then for me, I decided to go a different way. My father was a doctor, but I decided to become a performing artist. But then, me and my group, we use this performing arts, that is dance, music, drama, theater, to work with different groups, different people in our communities in Kenya. Especially, we work with women a lot, especially young women, those teenage mothers who are going through different problems. We also work with, for example, we work also with women who are going through different problems, like those who have gone through rape situations. So we work a lot with women, and we deliberately focus on women. So ladies and gentlemen, before I tell you the reason why creativity and performing arts is a very important tool to use in development, I'd like you to join me sing this song that I sing before I start anything. Would you like to join me? Mm-hmm. Would you? Yes. I don't hear any voice. Yeah, Ofne? Yeah. Yeah? Okay, so the song goes like this. First, let me teach you the words. Can we all say Zaikwe? Zaikwe. 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 We, we. Wa, wa, wa. Wa, wa, wa. Zaikwe. Zaikwe. We, we. Wa, wa, wa. And the music goes like this, yeah? Zaikwe, we, we, wa, wa, wa. Zaikwe, we, we, wa, wa, wa. Also, very good, very good. But now, you know, in Africa, people are very strong. You know, those people are very strong. Yeah? So they sing with a lot of energy, with a lot of, oh, this thing can fall. So, so they sing with a lot of energy and eager and passion, and they have that feeling, the fire inside. So I want that feeling. You know, Holland is very cold, my friend. Even you see sun and you're on the bike. Dutch people with bicycle. You're on the bike and you still feel pain here and everything because of the wind. So I want that energy, yeah? I want to see that energy. So I want to stand up. You've been sitting the whole day, and that is not good for your health. Stand up, everybody. Yeah, stand up. Yeah? And put your phones down, or you want to picture me? You want to So put everything down, computer, laptop, jacket, remove everything, yeah? And just shake a little bit, like Shakira. Yeah? Okay, and we're going to do like this. Zaikwe. Zaikwe. We, we. Wa, wa, wa. Zaikwe. We, we. Wa, wa, wa. So we try with the music, yeah? Zaikwe. We, we. Wa, wa, wa. Zaikwe. We, we. Wa, wa. Zaikwe. We, we. Zaikwe. We, we. And so, the music is not music without rhythm, yeah? If you hear rhythm, reggae music, any music, you start moving, yeah? So I want to add some music into it, yeah? But I want you guys to sing. I want you guys to sing and dance to the rhythm, yeah? Are you going to help me sing? Yes. Are you going to help me sing? Yes. If I say go, we go, yeah? This is about me and you. It's about us. Performing arts is about everybody. Are you ready? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. 5, 6, 7. Zaikwe, we, we. Zai. Zaikwe, we, we. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You are very good students. You can have a seat. You are very good singers. So from today on, if you want to join my choir or my group, you are all qualified. I cannot pay tickets for all of you, but if you can pay tickets, you come with me to Kenya, then you join my group. Okay, so one day, and Aurelia, you know Kariobangi slums in Nairobi. One day, me and my group went for community outreach in Kariobangi. It's a small slum based in Nairobi Eastlands. So we went. At that time, there was a lot of issues of domestic violence in different families in Kenya. So one of the things that we used is performing arts, that is music, dance, and drama. So we made a play about this family, which was going through a lot of domestic violence. And the play was about this husband and this wife, and the husband was beating the wife. I know in Holland it's not so normal, but the husband was beating the wife. And part of the reason was because this wife was not economically independent. She was depending too much on this husband and was kind of stressing this husband, asking for even small things like money to buy matchstick, money to buy salt. And this husband was feeling like, you should also be contributing, it's not only me. So this husband was frustrated and sometimes was beating her, and Aurelia, you know that? So during that time we were doing this play, the audience was packed. There were small children seated in front of us, beautiful girls, old men, young boys. Everybody was there watching this play. And after the play, I remember very well after the play, of course, people contributed, people commented, people talked about it. And there's one girl among the audience. There was a young, beautiful lady. And she came to me, she was kind of hesitating. She came to me and asked me, excuse me, of course we talk in Sheng, we talk in youth language called Sheng. So she came to me and asked me, excuse me, I have a problem. You see, my husband is abusing me. And I was like, I asked myself, your husband? Because she looks like 16, she looks like 15, very young. Very young. So in my heart I was asking, of course I didn't ask her that one, but in my heart I was asking, your husband, how? At this age? But then I said, okay. So she asked me, how can I get help? Who can help me from this? Because this play is reflecting about my life. It's really reflecting about what I'm going through, and it's like you guys were seeing me as you're making this play. So what I told her is to join us, to come to our place the following day. And since our organization, me and my friends, we have like a program deliberately focusing on young women. It's called Young Women Initiative. And this is a program that also gives different life skills to the young women, and it's also a safe space for young women to discuss their own issues and come up with the creative solutions that they can also use to address these challenges they go through. So I referred her to that group, and of course, up until there, I did my part. And when she was there, she learned a lot of skills and met good networks that led her to a new life. From there, she got an opportunity to work with an airline after training, to work with an airline that is based in Dubai. And now she's working in Dubai and is able to provide for the family, for the husband, and for the child. And at the moment, what I can say is she has that say in the community, and the husband is actually respecting her that much because she's now even a little bit higher than the husband. She can buy a lot of expensive stuff, like what my colleague was talking about, the beauty stuff. She can afford those heels, She can afford beautiful bags, and people respect her very much. She looks different. She's really different at the moment than if you compare to the previous years when she was coming to me and talking to me. And she's still young, and she has a very bright future, according to me. I can see inside here we have a lot of quite young people, students, people with a lot of potential. And you feel really safe in this place. You feel really accommodated to do what you want to do and learn what you want to learn, and you have a lot of facilities. And what I can say right now in Kenya, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in the streets, a lot of fear in classrooms, a lot of fear in the office, a lot of fear in the shopping malls. And you can see this kind of mistrust. You don't trust the next person who's standing next to you. You don't trust any person who is carrying a handbag or carrying a polythene or carrying anything. You just don't trust people. There's a lot of that hatred. And for me, I'm looking for a way to break this wall, to break this barrier. And I think the only way and the only easy way is to try to break that bond through physical contact with people. And the only way to contact people physically is through performing arts. It's through theater, it's through dance, it's through music. Because I think and I feel performing arts is a very strong tool because it helps you communicate one-on-one with people. It opens up a new world for people. It gives you like a space to express who you really are. I mean, it doesn't really discriminate whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Muslim. It doesn't discriminate whether you are a girl or a boy. So for me, I think the easiest way for me is to use that performing arts. Of course, there are other people, other stakeholders working around these kind of issues. But for me, I think this is a powerful tool. It has worked before, it will work today, and it will continue working tomorrow. So as I finish my talk today, I'd like to request all of you, if you don't mind, to please stand up as we remember those students who lost their lives in Nairobi, in Garissa University in Kenya. The 147 students who lost their lives in Kenya recently, to be with them, to be with their family. So if we'd like to observe a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Harrison. And thank you also for bringing to memory the lives that were lost in that tragic terrorist attack. Now, I was wondering when I heard you speak and when I saw you move, you said at the very beginning that the idea initially, years ago, was that you would become a doctor.
Yeah, that was expected of me.
And you said that your stepfather really wanted you to be...
to follow the path of my father.
Is your stepfather proud of you now for the work you do?
Yeah, he's so proud. He's so proud, and yeah, most of the people are.
So if there is people here in the audience, which I could imagine, we have a lot of students here in the audience, if there's somebody here in the audience who may also have a dad or a mom or an uncle or an aunt who's really pushing to follow in their footsteps, what would your advice be to those people? How do you deal with that?
Now, for me, what I think is just follow your heart. If it's your heart to follow, to do what is best for you, then you see, you'll not be forced to do it. You'll do it until death do you part, until you die. So, but this one, you'll not do it with that passion, you know. So you'll not be serving the right way. So I think for me, just do what is coming from your heart.
Even if that means disobeying?
Even that, if it means that disobeying, then let your parent forgive you for that mistake.
Okay, I think that's very good advice. Now, yes, you can clap for that. Yeah, hey. Here's to dreams. Now, there may be somebody in the audience who has a question for Harrison. We have time for one question. Who feels, was that a hand? Or was that just somebody sitting now? No, it wasn't. We do have a hand. Oh, yes, up there. Yay, on the balcony.
Oh.
All the way up there, yeah.
I only see lights.
We need binoculars to see them, but we do see them vaguely. Thank you very much. Woo! Oh, we just, poof, this was scary. Are you okay up there? Are you okay? Yeah? Good.
Yeah. Hi.
Yes.
No. Oh, no, let not go of the microphone, yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, hi. I've read statistics about Kenya and how common wife beating is there? And you made a play about it. Do you see it decreasing though, or what could help, change the perception about how common it is and it being a norm almost?
Yes, what I can say, yes, it was common, but at the moment it's not. Because right now we have different strategies that have been laid down that are addressing that. We have a new constitution that is also very strict on the issue of gender balance and the issue of, addressing the rights of women. And right now you won't do that in Kenya. You'll be arrested and be locked up. Yeah, so it's reducing. People fear doing that again. Yeah.
Actually, speaking about that topic, which is a topic close to my heart, because I'm a survivor of what people call domestic violence, which I think is a wrong word, because there's nothing domestic about violence. Yeah. But there's one thing I would like to point out. You said it was not so normal here as opposed to Kenya, but 1 out of 3 women here is a victim of domestic violence. Oh. And it's a taboo topic that is not really often talked about. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's sometimes, a misconception that it's not here.
Because maybe here you don't see it on the face of the world. Maybe it's behind the curtain, but there you see it. You see it openly, yeah. So that's the difference, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, you studied here. Yeah. I think we would like to see more of you back here in the Netherlands, to keep inspiring us and keep us moving as well, because that's what you did. You kept us moving. And thank you very much for being here with us today. Let's hear it for Harrison once more. Thank you very much. Yeah, time flies when you're being inspired, but we're already down to our next and last chapter, which is about women, peace, and a way forward. And that actually is our next speaker's daily business. Marriët Schuurman was appointed as NATO Secretary General's Special Representative for Women, Peace and Security in October 2014. She is the high-level focal point for all aspects on NATO's contribution to the women, peace and security agenda, which is exactly what she will be talking about today. Let's hear it for Marriët Schuurman.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, women, peace and a way forward. There can be no lasting peace without equality, without women and men contributing evenly and equally to shaping the future of their countries. There can be no lasting peace as long as half of the world's population is excluded, as long as women and girls bear the burden of war, but don't have a say in preventing or resolving war, as long as women and girls are the main victims of war, but they're not empowered to solve the war and to contribute to peace and security. That is a harsh historic lesson of decades of war, and particularly devastating wars in the 90s, in Rwanda, in the Balkans, and all over the world. And that is the lesson that has been codified in the milestone famous 1325 resolution in 2000, 15 years ago. So 1325 is about mobilizing the power of women for better peace. In short, no women, no peace. So we're 15 years later. Did it make a difference? Is it still relevant? I see it as my job to prove 1325 alive, relevant, and indispensable. I see my job as a collector of stories. I travel across the world to collect the evidence that it matters. Stories of exceptional courage, particularly of women, courage and perseverance. Stories of men and women that continue to fight for equal rights and opportunities, and to give a voice to women. Stories that prove that it is relevant and that it does make a difference. So last night I came back from Afghanistan. And time and again I'm impressed by the extreme courage and perseverance of women human rights defenders in Afghanistan. And the new First Lady of Afghanistan, Mrs. Rouleghani, delivered a speech in which she described how society's reaction to recent atrocities to women demonstrates that we are making a difference. So she explained how for decades women groups and human rights defenders have been fighting for the social status, for the status of women in Afghanistan, and how the international community came in to support that and to support the champions for peace in Afghanistan. And then she said, then came Farkhunda. Farkhunda is about the atrocious, horrendous torturing and killing of a young female religious scholar who dared to challenge a so-called religious leader who was selling amulets to already destitute women who were in desperate need of help in their insecure lives. And Rulegane explained how the aftermath of the killing of Farkhunda shows that the years of fights for human rights and equality are paying off, that we are making a difference, and that the outcry for the social media has led to a national debate about the status of women in Afghanistan, about how to restore the old Afghan values of respect and dignity, and on how to heal the country from the trauma of decades of war. So it demonstrates that maybe the death of Farkhunda has not been in vain, and it has given a spark of hope in Afghanistan, that this may be the historic turning point for peace and security in Afghanistan, and the awakening of a collective conscience. So it demonstrates that fighting for human rights and dignity in Afghanistan did make a difference, is making a difference, it's finally paying off, and also that we as international community finally have been starting to do the right thing in enabling and in creating and safeguarding a space for human rights and dignity. So it does matter. And it also matters, we've learned that it does matter to apply what we call a gender lens to peacekeeping operations. That we send in also female soldiers and police officers, who are the only ones who can connect with half of the population, in order to understand the needs, to respond better, and to avoid that we're doing more harm than good. That by applying a gender lens, we understand how the traditional role of men and women in society is, how conflict affects those roles and often exacerbates already existing inequalities, and how our response to that has an impact to that as well. By engaging with women and with female leaders, we also empower them, we give them a voice, we give them capacity to have their say in restoring peace and security in Afghanistan. By training female security providers, we have helped women to protect and defend themselves and their communities. By training female searchers and female election observations, we allowed women to come out and vote, leading to a historically high turnout of women in the last presidential elections. Women that voted for a president who promised that their daughters will have the same opportunities as his grandmother once had. So it does make a difference, but are we there yet? And I'm afraid we have to say, no, the world has not become a safer place for women. We still have a long way to go in order to translate 1325 into reality. And I see two challenges that we're facing. We still have to internalize gender sensitivity and at the same time adapt it to the security challenges that we're facing today. So, while we have learned to apply a gender lens to operations and peacekeeping operations, we tend, by reflex, to put the lens aside when our own security is under threat, when we're confronted with extremist violence or with insecurity at our borders, challenging our very values. So my point today is that it is time to bring the women, peace and security agenda home. and to demonstrate that it does make a difference, equal opportunities for all, that it will make us better and stronger and more resilient. It is time to bring it home, because a safer world starts at home. It starts with equal opportunities for all to contribute to a safer society and a resilient society, for men and women to use their full potential to shaping the future of their society. We are more secure when we are inclusive. And here I have great hopes that the new generation, they will make it happen. They will build better peace, peace built on equal rights and opportunity, and resilient societies where men and women can use their full potential, and where girls and boys can go as far as their dreams will take them. So this is my appeal to you as a young generation. Engage, make your voices heard, think inclusive, and start at home.
Thank you very much, Marriët. And we will see you back up here for the Q&A after our next speaker, who began life as a lawyer in 1990, and within 4 years was made partner in a large UK law firm. Now, a lot of people would be very happy just there, you know, and live life happily ever after. But that really did not quite do it for our next speaker. No, she went on to specialize in discrimination law and then extended her skills to the international sphere. She started bringing cases to the European Court of Human Rights and the European Court in Luxembourg. And in 1998, she began working for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights as gender expert and head of office in Bosnia-Herzegovina. She then served as the head of the Women's Rights and Gender Unit for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And since 2010, she has been the Secretary General of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. I am very honored to introduce Ms. Madeleine Rees.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I feel so old when I go through the things that I have done. How many of you in here are personally happy? Very good. How many of you are happy with the state of the world? Good, because that means you're on the same line as I am. And if you're on the same line as I am, then you know that we need to make changes. I want to talk about how we got to the state we're in now and what we can do to change it. It's strange that we're all unhappy with the way the world is now, because think what we have achieved. The organization I work for now, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, been talking for 100 years of the need to address root causes of conflict, to address inequalities, and to make sure we have a multilateral system which brings peace. We have it. The United Nations is the biggest peace organization in the world. It was set up to make sure that conflict resolution was done through arbitration, not through violent conflict. We have 9 human rights treaties, which all demand equality. We have a women, peace and security agenda, which is essentially to make sure that women have their rights to participate at all levels, before conflict, during conflict, after conflict, and that we do that on the basis of equality. But not just to participate, to actually make sure that we make that fundamental difference. We've had 4 World Conferences on women, culminating in Beijing, and what a fantastic outcome that was. So if I worked for the UN, as I used to, as you know, I would tick all my boxes and think, yes, what a great job. What's our problem? The problem is, it's not working. When we look at the root causes of conflict, we need to address how we get there. And there are 2 major ways in which we do that. One is through militarism and militarization. You can't have a war if you don't have militaries to fight them. You have a different type of war, and you need to address those root causes which lie and are buried in economic power structures. And it's highly, highly gendered. Last year alone, the world spent $1.776 trillion on arms. That's 480 years of the UN regular budget, 6,800 years of funding for UN women. We could have realized all the Millennium Development Goals and lived happily ever after. We could have lived them several times over, not just once. But we didn't. We put them into the arms race. And we use those guns, we use those arms. We have 18 conflicts burning as we speak, not to mention what's going on in Mexico and other countries which are undeclared wars. So with all that happening, why? I want to look at the political economy and gendered analysis within that. We are creatures of our environments. We are brought up in particular ways to do particular things. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and sometimes I let her watch cartoons, not often, particularly where there's one, it's called Wings Club. And I sat down and watched it with her, and there are these delightful fairies, I think, going off to play with butterflies and flowers. No, what are they doing? Fighting the bad boys. And they're fighting the bad boys, not talking to the bad boys, but they're using their special powers to destroy the bad boys. So from the time of this age on, we now have little girls using their idea, being indoctrinated into the idea that you use your power to destroy. Bad things, yes, but you don't enter into dialogue. That's different. I'm old enough and ugly enough to know that we were never taught to do that when I was little. We played with butterflies and flowers. But we now have this fundamental change that we as women are now being brought into a system which is militarizing us. So girls can use weapons as well as boys. Of course we can. The normative framework actually dictates that we have the equality to bear arms, and I would endorse that as a human rights lawyer. But why? Why do we do that? When men don't want to do it either. But there's a system in place which requires that we keep doing this. And this is where we get to the economy of power. Those billions that were put into defense and security, who are they defending? The 1% of the world's population, which owns 48% of the world's wealth as of today, whereas next year it's going to be 52%. 2 years after that, it is likely to be up to 90% of the world's wealth because it's growing exponentially. So we have a huge and vast increase in resources in very, very few hands. And what do they need? A security system to protect that system. And we're part of that system. And it starts in political economy. No point in talking about gender unless we talk about our relationship to power. Men and women have a relationship to power, and it is gendered. It starts in the family. Who has power? Economic, physical, and other. It spreads into employment. It goes in through education into how we then participate in public life. And on the whole, it's favored in terms of men. That's patriarchy. It's instrumentalizing all of us to protect and participate in systems which then are highly militarized, economically disenfranchising, and ultimately will deny our fundamental human rights. So what do? We have to reclaim our international law. We have to reclaim our international system. It's not good enough that we now have a default position in international law where military response is the first response, not the last response. None of you could have missed what's gone on in Yemen, Iraq particularly, Syria, and now with Yemen it's slightly different because military response was the first response. And it was the second response once we had bombed them first time. We now have to go and do it again. Didn't work first time, try it again. Who gets hurt? The civilian population. Used to be, in wars, 10% of the population with civilians would be killed, 90% would be soldiers. It's now the other way around. And that's highly gendered because the civilian population are predominantly women, children, the men who don't fight. And so now it's predominantly women and children who are targeted. Not targeted, collateral damage. So we have to think through what that means in terms of what we need to be doing. We can no longer allow the United Nations to sit back and allow international law to be subverted by the power structures and apparent interests of nation states, when in fact those nation states are supposed democracies, but who are influenced enormously by the power of the corporations who pay for the election campaigns of various participants in the political system. How do we change that? It starts with us. It absolutely starts with us. Every single one of you kept your hands down when I said, are you happy with the world situation? Which means every single one of you can do something. We are about to start another 100 years campaign to try to make what we said in 1915 true now and work now. It starts with equality. It starts with a gender analysis of power and how that works, and how we are going to ground that in fundamental changes within our families, within our education systems, within our employment systems, and from there into how our politicians and our representatives represent what we want, not what nameless, faceless, non-transparent, non-accountable corporations do. We need law to regulate it. We need law to help us to realize those things. So it means we have to engage in making sure and being forever vigilant that those laws and those politicians are us and represent us. We have to take those into the international multilateral system so that the policies are reflective of the things that I've said need to be changed, that they uphold international law. It is not good enough that Margaret Wallström declares a feminist foreign policy, calls Saudi Arabia a medieval state, which everybody calls it when it comes to beheading and human rights protections, and nobody in the international community supports her. Where were your foreign ministers? Where were they? They should be saying, yes, she is right. That's international law. That's international obligation. We must do things around that. They didn't. Everyone hid behind the deals that needed to be made to sell more arms, to buy oil, whatever it would be, to keep that economic privileged few privileged. So we need more of that. We need more accountability. We need to make sure that the courts that we set up, International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, that are there to stop the worst ravages of conflict by dispute resolution and through arbitration and through criminal prosecution of those who violate. Everybody, every state needs to sign up to those mechanisms so that we do have accountability. In closing, my daughter, she watches Wings Club, yes, but she was also very, very taken, because we lived in France, in the Charlie Hebdo killings. As you recall, that was about ostensible freedom of speech issues, perhaps irresponsibly used, perhaps offensive to some. But she said, they didn't have to kill each other, Mummy, did they? They just had to talk, that's all. And that's what we need to do, to make the mechanisms that allow us to talk, to work for us. And to do that, we have to look to ourselves to make those work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please stay on stage with me for a second. Thank you very much, Madeleine. If you could move a little bit so we can make space for Marriët, and I would like to ask you to join me again. Wow, to be standing in the middle of these two sheroes. No, sheroes. And I'm actually wearing flats today. It's also a feminist statement in itself these days. Wow. So first of all, to start with your day, because you had quite a day. You just came from the Peace Palace,
yes.
I understood?
Yes, I've just come from the Peace Palace, where the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, we've had our 100th Congress. Big applause, because we deserve that. So, an organization, the longest lasting peace organization in the world, and so we've been having our Congress to reinvigorate our energies as to what we're going to do to stop the next one, to see where we need to regroup, re-strategize, start again. So we've been doing that for the last 3 days, and we're finishing today. And then next week, to which I want you all to come to, we're going to have a massive conference in the World Forum. And there are going to be 80 NGOs from all around the world. There will be women from every single conflict zone. Every single conflict zone. Some we couldn't get visas for, but still some of their sisters are still able to come. So we'll have every single conflict zone represented. We will have men from Men Engage and Sonki talking about the need to look at the creation of violent masculinities and how harmful that is, destructive that is, and why we need to create, or not even create because it exists, a different masculine alternative, and laud and praise that. So we're going to have all of those things, and we want to look at origins of conflict, militarization, and importantly, what we do to fix it, what we all do to fix it. And then off we go fix it.
So if people here would like to know more about that, where would they be able to?
We have 2 of my staff colleagues here.
Maybe you can stand up so that everybody knows who to talk to afterwards. These 2 ladies here, both in white, actually, very conveniently. So they're very
They have all the propaganda,
located.
They can sign you up, they can show you where to go, and
Right.
I mean, I really, really hope you will be able to be there because it will be quite the experience. I should also say we have all the female Nobel laureates coming and speaking, save one, Tabakle, who has got, unfortunately, to be working on Yemen, of course.
Of course, understandably. Thank you very much. Now, Marriët, about that famous resolution 1325. When I was UN Women's Representative at the UN, I once was at a panel discussion where this was the topic, and in the corridors I heard two older men, older white, I would say European, I don't know, diplomats say to each other, yeah, this is all, of course, very nice, but there's a war out there. Now, what would you say? I didn't know what to say to them. I was just so angry. I was standing there like, you really don't get it, do you? But what would you say? What would you say to people like that?
Well, I also sometimes heard that phrase. And that's why I also said, you know, we are sometimes very comfortable to talk about equal rights and opportunities in what we perceive as very traditional societies far away. But not at how we perceive our own security. Right. And that is, I think, the challenge indeed that we face, that we also understand that it is a fundamental issue. This international legal order that Madeleine was talking about is based on the understanding and the conviction that our peace, the very foundation of our peace and security, is equal rights and fundamental freedoms. And that the only way to protect those values and to protect our peace and security is to live them. Yeah. So it's an essential, I think as the Swedish minister put it, it's a national security issue. Yeah. It's not a soft thing, it's a hardcore security issue.
Yeah. Now, listening to both of you, and also actually to all of today's speakers, you all had one thing in common. You were all saying, you said it quite literally, get engaged. It's also what you keep saying, like, you know, get out there, join this debate, keep talking. Yeah. A lot of my students and other young people that I meet on a daily basis, they ask me, so how do you actually take that first step? I mean, getting engaged when you're sitting here in The Hague may seem like quite an abstract thing. So could you try to make that a little bit more concrete? What could that look like for people sitting here thinking, listening to you, thinking, yeah, actually, I do want to get engaged, but how?
I think it starts with responsibility, as I said, to make your voices heard. And through social media today, there's so many options to express yourself and to give your own opinion on how you want the world to look like, you know, and to contribute to that. So it starts, as was also said by Jody, I think, that, you know, use the social media to express yourself, to make clear where you stand. By doing that, you press your the politicians and the leadership in your country to make the right choices. And I think that's a responsibility. It's a right, it's also a responsibility. And the women here in the room have all the opportunities, many more opportunities than the women in Afghanistan who are doing it as well. So if they can do it, we can do it.
Madeleine, yes.
Number one, don't be co-opted.
Don't be co-opted.
Don't be co-opted into thinking that we can make wars safe, that security is about militarization, and don't be co-opted into thinking of others as others, because that's how it works. Right now, we're all being made afraid. We're all afraid of Islam. We don't know what it is, but we're afraid of it. We're all afraid of migrants coming in and taking our jobs, and even though at the same time we're watching them drowning and feeling horror that we might stop, or we did stop, helping and assisting. But now we just want to stop them coming, even though we feel very sorry that they're drowning. We've got to be more intelligent than that. We have got to work on human rights values, which we then go ahead with. So don't be co-opted in thinking wars can be made safe. No, they can't. Military solutions will work. No, they don't. We brought women from ISIL-controlled areas to Istanbul fairly recently, from both Syria and Iraq. And you know what they told us? Stop the bombing. If you stop the bombing, you've taken away their whole raison d'etre. And they will implode because there are power struggles going on within that. All that happens is the military bombing hits civilians, radicalizes people, makes them more determined to go and kill the other. So their othering and our othering means we divide, and we cannot then make up for a long, long time. And it's never the same again once you've been in a conflict. So we have to prevent conflict, and we prevent conflict by understanding that we don't get conflict resolution through violence. It will not work. We know that from the family. We know it right the way through to what happens when you have international conflicts. So that's number one. Second one is not everybody can do everything. Sometimes you look at the world and you think, it's too big, it's too much, I'm going to raise puppies or something. I do that a lot, but because it's too big. It's too incomprehensible, and the power structures are so up there, and I'm down here, and what do? Well, I'm just one person, and you're all one persons, but look how many of us there are in the room. And all of you have your own skill base. All of you can do different things. You know, I do law, but there are many other ways, and I don't do social media because I'm crap at technology, but there are brilliant people in this room who are wonderful at technology, who can translate things from one idea into another idea. We know where they are. We have this fantastic access to academic research now, who can tell us as they are that, in fact, look at women's security in countries and you'll see whether or not they're predisposed to go to war. Look at the way in which the girl child is treated, whether she is allowed to die of starvation because her brothers need feeding, whether she's allowed to get an education or not, and you will have a diagnostic of how likely that country is to be unstable and to create violent masculinities. That's specific data. So you can see that there's so many different entry points for all of the things and all the skills you've got, and you pick an area, and it will be part of that jigsaw puzzle that we need to put together to make the change.
Thank you very much. Now, you were mentioning social media. You are, oh yeah, you can clap. Did I hear people wanting to clap? Yes, bring it on. Let's clap. You were mentioning social media. You are on Twitter, I believe.
Twitter, and as a NATO Special Representative of Women, Peace and Security, we also have a Facebook page.
Great. Your Twitter account is Marriët S, right?
Yes.
Marriët S with double R.
Yes, double R.
Now, speaking about Twitter, I see our Twitter Danny standing here with Twitter Danny. That's your new name. We have a question for you, Madeleine. What is your position? Interesting question and quite topical. What is your position on TTIP, as we call it here, TTIP, the new trade agreement that is being discussed, negotiated as we speak, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership?
Isn't that scary? Don't you think that's scary? Because now we have a trade and investment linked together, which is then going to consolidate more power into more hands, or more power into fewer hands, with less ability for us to hold accountabilities for all those who are in partnership within it. It's a scary thought. It's another one of those great monolithic blocks which distance that block from us and our abilities to then exercise real choice in what we do and how we do it. So it's a very, very unfortunate, to say the very least, progress in the way that the economics of Europe and the whole transatlantic trade is going. So oppose it.
Clear. Very clear. Now I'm looking at the audience. Is there anybody who has a question for Yes, you were the first to raise your hand.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question for Madeleine. Thank you for your talk. This is related to the first part you said, like, of course, women, we can pick up the arms, but do we really want to? And my question in relation to beating this militarized society we're living in, do you see a special role for women? You talked about violent masculinities, but do you see value and use in the idea of peaceful femininities?
Yeah, we have to be very careful not to instrumentalize women. We're not all peaceful. We're not. And we are all in a system, which is why I said, of course women can fly fighter pilot planes, so they can be fighter pilots, they can do frontline duties, they can do it all. And don't think that will make a difference, because you're in the military because you're going to obey orders, not because you're going to decide, well, I'm not strafing that village because there's women and children in there. You're not going to do that. That's the military discipline. That's what I mean about co-option. So all it will do is increase the number of people in the military. It may change for a different form of peacekeeping, and that's a separate conversation. Peacekeeping shouldn't be militarized. We need to think that through and do it differently. And there, women play a huge and massive role. I was in Bosnia for many years, and the women had a really difficult position because they said, we sort of want peacekeepers because we think they're keeping peace. At the same time, it's the men in uniforms with guns. We know what they're doing in terms of sexual exploitation and abuse, and it denigrates the position of women as equals in our societies. So it had a very negative impact. So I think that's a problem. There is obviously a role for women in combating conflict and bringing peace. And that, I think, has got as much to do with our power within the societies and communities. We are there from beginning to end of a man's life. They are there with us too, but we need to make sure that the things that we're saying and the way in which we're behaving do not increase that idea of a masculine identity which is violent. I've seen it in Ukraine. You know, the women waving the men off, same as they did in the First World War and the Second World War. Off you go, my son, I'm a great patriot. So we play our roles in a very negative sense, in a very negatively gendered sense as well. And that's why I talk about co-option. Don't do it. Your son would probably be delighted if you said, no, you're not going, let's get you out of here. You know, that happened in Bosnia. Women did that for their sons to get them out. Those sons are not revered, they're not seen as heroes, but they refuse to kill their fellow Yugoslavs. So we all have our roles in that, and I think it's not to instrumentalize women, it's just that women are less likely to be in the military. Norway, I see, is now doing military conscription for women. Oh, dear. That's a problem. But let's move away from that and see what roles women can play in demilitarization, in building up the other roles for men and for women by basically what we're talking about is looking at those power structures and seeing where it is that we can shift them, so that we look at social economic rights and we look at how they impact on men and women from a level of discriminations. That's how I think we have got the access. If you look at pre-conflict and during conflict, it's women who are the drivers of peace organizing for peace, because we're the ones that aren't carrying the guns. We're the ones organizing the families to flee. We're the ones organizing the families to remain, the communities to remain, trying to feed the children, trying to fetch the water, doing all those things about community rebuilding. And I've seen it in Syria, Iraq, and Bosnia too, where that happened, is happening now in Ukraine. And so that's where the huge amount of information is about what's happening and what needs to be done and how to stop it. But of course, in context of conflict, we don't talk to women, because what are women going to do? You know, we don't want victims of sexualized violence crying at the table, which is what they said at the end of Second World War when they wanted to see whether women should be part of the war crimes. We need to make sure, the only thing that is guaranteed to bring sustainable peace, and this is now empirically evidenced by the research done by Tanya Pfaffenholz, is the participation of women. If you don't have women engaged in the peace negotiations, not just as figureheads, as part of a political party representing the warring factions, which we can do too, but the grassroots women who know what's going on, who are holding communities together, bring them in, let them tell you what you need to do to fix a situation, and you can fix it. And it works, and it's been proven to work.
I think Madeleine just pointed to something very interesting, the instrumentalization of women. Is that not also a risk that keeps luring in the context of Resolution 1325? And, you know, the risk of what I've heard being called pinkwashing a war. Like, okay, we bring women in and then it's okay. Just like, you know, big corporations use greenwashing, CSR strategies, corporate social responsibility. You know, we may kill all the trees, but we plant 5, so it's all good. We may rape a lot of women in a war situation, but we bring 2 to a negotiation and then it's all good. Do you come across that, and how would you battle that? How would you make sure that it's real?
I think it is a real concern, and in some of the discourse we see that. And I think it's important to keep the eye on the ball and to constantly go back to the basis, which is indeed the strong conviction that there can only be lasting peace when there's equality. And indeed that we have to find also the stereotypes which are both limiting women but also men to use their full potential to build resilient communities. And the discussion that was raised of masculinities is, you know, and how masculinities and stereotyping of certain masculine roles actually lead to violence and conflict. And we also learned in Bosnia, the Balkans and the Great Lakes that this is an issue to discuss on how we teach young men, you know, how to deal with aggression and frustration, lack of access in non-violent way. So I recognize that in the discussion this is a concern. I think the concern is legitimate, and I think it's important we just keep each other to task, and this transparency is of key importance on what we do. But the real thing is indeed to promote equal participation and to ensure that women have a say over peace and security and safety in their societies as well as the men, and that we don't reward the ones that pick up the arms to have a place at the table and the ones that are victimized not to have their voice.
Thank you.
Agreed.
We have time for one last question, and I want to hear you in the back, because we haven't heard a lot of men asking questions, so go ahead.
Well, I'm trying only to understand something, and my question is for both the lawyer and Mrs. Schuurman from the NATO. You talked about the system which creates a threat to lure people that this threat exists. And in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, I think the existence of such organizations like the one in which Mrs. Schuurman works, I think, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, you do the same like this system, because you create a threat which doesn't exist, and you put yourself in the side of a victim, but you don't say who is the person who is torturing you. So and that's what I think, in my opinion, that's what you do. So you put always, you don't say that, you don't answer the direct question that who is oppressing women. Well, if I wish I could hear that you say that it's man who is oppressing women, but you don't say so you escape this the fact of saying this by saying that there is a threat against women. So, and in my opinion, this is what is the difference between the old feminism and the new feminism. The old feminism, they say that every woman has the right to work, and they have the right to vote, and it's true. But they didn't put it in antagonism with men. So they said it's your right to do this and to do this, but they didn't say that because this person is oppressing you, so you have to do this. This is my question.
Madeline.
Oh, I think we've actually progressed. You know, I'm the old school feminist, is when we thought you were all the problem. But in fact, what we've now become more sophisticated at is realizing that it's the system that's the problem. It's the way in which cultures of hegemonic masculinity privileging what is seen as being a male trait over what is seen as being a female trait, highly gendered. That's where the problem lies. And that's why we have this creation of masculinities, this creation of feminists, in order to protect that. And what we have is, with men from this big, being socialized into an expectation of privilege, an expectation of power. It's highly, obviously there's an intersection of different discriminations there based on race, on ethnicity, on religious affiliation, all those things. But basically in any community, the male will have greater privilege than the female. In any community. And then within that, there will be greater privileges afforded to certain females according to their white, Western privilege. But what we're looking at is how you deconstruct that so that you can actually flip it and look at the power structures and see how it works. To get rid of these structures of hegemonic masculinities, we have to understand what it is that allows men to have that degree of dominance, and why women, who then get into positions of power, play that game too. Some of the women I've met in the United Nations systems are totally happy playing that game too. Some of the women in politics are totally in the same game. It's about power. And what we have to do is to understand that only by shifting that and actually getting towards equality, and it's not gender equality, it's about understanding the different roles that women and men are forced to play so that we can open it, so that we can all do those different roles. And we call that equality. So by the old feminism, which is totally a part of, we thought comparing like with like and getting real equality would make the changes. Because of what I've just said, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. Because we don't want women to have just an equal share of what a colleague from the Men Engage gang said, which is an equal share of the poisoned pie. We don't want that. We want transformative change.
We want to redo the pie altogether.
Yeah. Remake your pie.
Yeah. Marriët.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more, and I can't put it so eloquently. I think, it's not about threat. The threat is not coming from the man towards the women, or the women towards the man. And I think it's really the conviction that equal rights and opportunities benefit us all, if we can all be liberated from stereotypes that limit us in using our full potential, be it men or women. So it is not a one or the other. I think it's a shared responsibility, a shared interest from the conviction that it will create a better world and that we can contribute to that.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah,
on that?
sure.
Just one last thing on that, because I don't want to give the impression that we're not worried about male violence, because we are. I don't think there's a woman in this room that has not experienced some degree of possible male violence or real male violence. And we need men to stand up and say that we do not want this, this is not what we are for.
Yes, hear, hear. And they do.
I'm sure that we could talk for hours, and I'm sure that there's lots of questions.
We can next week.
So
next week.
Don't forget the two girls. I'm sorry, sir, but I have to round off. I have very strict instructions to be on time today, which fortunately we have managed to do.
Well
well done, huh? I would like a big round of applause for these two sheroes, Madeline and Marriët. Thank you very much for being here today. And we will be sure to follow your great activities and keep clapping once you're at it for all the other speakers we saw today. Weren't they great? Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I sure learned a lot about women, peace and security today. I hope today's guests managed to inspire you to think about what you can do to be that change you want to see in the world, to quote Gandhi. And I would like to add a quote of myself: without change, no butterflies. Yeah, and who likes a world full of caterpillars? Well, I think none of us do. And I would like to thank a few people. First of all, the team of Hague Talks. They're sitting here. Deborah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to work with you. All the volunteers up here and up there. The people there who made sure that we were being heard and seen. Of course, also thank you to the people who joined us on live stream. And last but not least, thank you very much for sharing this wonderful sunny afternoon. I mean, there's loads of people out there who would think, oh yeah, you know, nice, women, peace, security, but I'd rather be at the beach. But you didn't think that. You were here, which is step one in making this world a better place. My name is Kirsten van den Hul. It was really a big honor to be with you today. Check out my website, thechangeagent.nl, if you want to know more about what I do. We look forward to seeing you at another Hague Talks event, and join the debate online. Thank you very much. Have a safe evening. Bye-bye.